Just wanted to cover in this tutorial tonight something which often comes up. I cover it extensively in the golf schools and it often gets misinterpreted. In fact, there's been a few variations of it on YouTube lately with other coaches, and you can see where the misinterpretations are there as well, because it's how the body links up as a fascial system. So think of it as a tensioning system, and we've got to release the tension so the whole system can tension itself. And the big driver of this tensioner is the pivot. But we've got to allow the end of the chain, the distal end, to be freewheeling, not compromising the function of the pivot by putting too much inertia on the system, too much force, too much effort, too much control of the golf club. We've got to swing the golf club freely, then the body can respond and it can tension itself. Just like walking. When you're walking, you take a step, there's no real tightness, you're not trying to contract and control and tension, you just let yourself fall. And the body tensions itself for a recoil, for a rebound. So we're tapping into the body's elastic potential. It's what we use in all of the sports. And that's why other sports seem often easier, because we're using our natural recoil. It's effortless and the body functions its best in that state. So the physiology is conducive for performance. Well, how do we tap into that? Well, we're starting off with what the arms do, because we don't want the arms to compromise the function of the body, because we want the body to drive it. And then the system tensions itself from the ground, because the body naturally taps into the ground reaction forces. A la walking, you don't think about how you push off the ground to go forward. Your body does it intuitively, and you allow it to happen. So there's no deliberate kind of intention. You're not manipulating, you're just letting yourself move freely. So let's take this into a golf swing. So in a golf swing, we're not trying to manipulate the movement of the golf club with the arms. The arms aren't actually driving the action of the club. They're not positioning the club. Otherwise, they're doing everything. The arms are doing the role of the body. We're missing out the rotation because the arms are swinging around, they're lifting, and we're essentially trying to make the journey of the golf club with the arms. And that's not the case. The arms are on a completely different journey. They're traveling through different planes of motion to the golf club. For example, let's take, and you'll have seen this on lots of shorts on the channel and other tutorials on the channel, and in lesson videos particularly, most pupils go through this, where we take the trail hand and we place it on the lead bicep. And then we allow ourselves to swing the club from the elbow. So we're feeling the rotation of the forearm, the pronation and the supination, and it's coming from the elbow. So we're not interfering with the upper arm, trying to control it, because that compromises the shoulder, and that compromises now how the rib cage reacts and how we pivot the body, how we create speed. So without realising it, by trying to control the club and maybe keep the face square, or take it back square or in line, and cock the wrist so the club points down to the target line, and then we lift it, tracing the target line. This is all lift it, pushing, pulling, lifting. We're doing lots of work with the arms, and we're overriding the body's ability to function. So just recognising the role of the arms, and use the swing weight. Notice here the shaft's rotating, and I'm allowing the club to rotate whilst it's behind the pivot action of the wrist. So the wrists are acting as a pivot, and we're able to rotate and close this face whilst it's lagging behind the wrist. That's a perfect scenario in a golf swing. But what does it feel like? Because often we're trying to square the face down here, or we're looking at this position, but it's far too late. Everything that you're seeing here is a product of what's happening way earlier. So we actually want to recognise what it feels like here. What are the forces that are involved here in the movement patterns that actually result in this kind of desirable release and this follow through? What's actually happening to encourage this? Well, just allow your arm to swing freely from the elbow and use the swing weight, and just let the forearm rotate. What we don't want to happen is we don't want to have to use the swinging action of the club to pass the pivot to close the face. That might be okay for, say, a sand wedge, for a lob shot or a bunker shot. But if we're trying to compress an iron, we want to use the roll of the shaft. We want to use the rotation about the shaft. And we can do that here. Just holding the club parallel, just cock the wrist. So now the club's horizontal and just rotate like a motorbike, feeling the rotation. This can happen anywhere on the way down. And notice when you've got your trail hand on your bicep, you can allow it to just flex at the elbow. So notice the arm isn't going around my body here, it's actually lifting. Because this is the role of the arms, to lift. The arm's going up, yet look at the trajectory of the club head. The club head makes a semicircle. But the pivot action, my wrist, isn't actually tracing this arc. I'm not creating the arc with the wrist. I'm not mimicking the journey of the club with the wrist. It's not making the same journey. I'm actually going up. It's actually more of a down and up action because I'm allowing the elbow to flex. And this is super important. And notice the knuckles are down, the palms up, club face is closing. But I can do that before the golf ball here. Knuckles down, palm up, forearms rotating. I'm feeling what it's like to supinate the club from the elbows, or from the elbow, should I say. And then when we take the arm away, we can feel how the shoulder contributes to this now freewheeling action. Now, let's take the trail arm. Let's put the lead arm on the trail bicep and let's feel the same action. Notice I'm not going back here trying to make that one-piece takeaway, all that rigidity, which is now compromising my body. It's actually bypassing my body's need to rotate. My body's just reacting, it's getting pulled by the arms. Whereas we actually want the rotation of the body to throw the arms and use the body's pivot for momentum and transfer that angular momentum through to the arms. So we're just swinging the weight of the club and it creates its own arc in space. So what's the feel with the trail arm? Well, you'll often hear about a waiter's tray back here. And I'm not a big fan of kind of positions, but the analogy is not bad, but it's not here. And you'll hear people misinterpret it. I saw a video the other day online of instruction talking about the waiter's tray here. It's not here. It's actually, if it's going to be anywhere, it's here. It's actually in front of the body. Can you see how my hand is really kind of tracking up and down where my buttons are? And my arm is externally rotating, it's supinating, and the elbow's flexing, and the weight gets thrown to the side, and it's creating an arc. That's a nice free swinging action of the club, just a nice semicircle, and all my arm's doing is going up. And now when I take my hand away from the bicep, I can allow it to elevate. Now, this is, if you think about it, what do all the pros want? They always talk about having the club in front of them, and all the coaches are saying, keep the club in front, keep the arms in front. Well, this is the arm action to do that, because now I'm allowing my body the opportunity to rotate. And now I end up in this place that they all talk about. But it's actually an elevation of the arms through the flexion of the elbow, and then an elevation of the arm. Here, I'm allowing the arm to move away from the body, it's abducting, it's elevating, it's shoulder flexion, going up, and it's elbow flexion. And now I can let it lift, 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 and I can feel the weight of the golf club. And it's loading the wrist. I'm feeling the golf club here, and it's a strong, if you like, orientation of face. It's going to encourage probably a draw shape. But what I'm allowing myself to do is feel the weight of the golf club and swing it freely, not compromise my body movement, but now invite my body to rotate. So when I rotate now, it all starts to blend as one. And it may look like a one-piece takeaway or a wrist cocking here, and then going to the top with the waiter's tray and a 90-degree shoulder turn and a 45-degree hip turn, but it's not produced like that. Three-dimensionally, these planes of motion are very different. The arms are tracking on a different journey, a different trajectory. The hands are tracking on a different trajectory to the club head. But it produces a fantastic, beautiful flowing arc here, a consistent arc, and an ability to sense the three-dimensional movement of the club, the rotation of the face this way, yes, this way too, and we can explore the feeling of it. We're becoming more intuitively aware of where the club is in space. It's ramping up the body's GPS system, which is what we're relying on at speed, that proprioception, which is basically feel. What we're teaching here is feel. We're isolating feel at the end of the chain, and we're allowing ourselves to recognize it. And then we can integrate the pivot. Because the next question I get asked is, well, surely this is going to just encourage a flip roll. But this is where now the role of the body takes over. Because remember I talked about a tensioning system. Well, the pivot, just like the carousel at the fun fair, the pivot in the middle, the axis, it throws the chairs, but the chairs are lagging behind. Because there's lag tension on the chain from the pivot to the flying chair. And that's your arms and the club, from the shoulders, from the torso. So what happens is, what might appear to look like this, or even feel like this, and you think, God, I can't be, in my training, I can't be doing this. Well, you absolutely can, providing the body now functions, because it's going to encourage the body to rotate, and the body rotation will lag the golf club. So now the club head's trailing the hands, and the hands are trailing the torso, and the torso's trailing the pelvis, and we're using the ground to move the pelvis to rotate, just like we do in walking. We don't think about how we're using the ground. Once we start to switch off the tensioning, we start to use the swing weight, and the body responds really favourably. And if you watch previous videos, you can go into the pivot action videos on the channel, and we can talk about the pivoting action, which is very similar to the walking action that I mentioned. We can talk about how we're actually travelling from toe to heel, heel to toe, to rotate the body. And just like we're allowing this club to swing freely, we've got to let the arms swing freely. So how do we do that? Well, we rotate the torso. If I don't rotate my torso, I have to action this myself. This is muscular effort across the joint. This is a lot of compromise in terms of tension on the body. It's limiting my movement. But if I rotate the torso, which throws the shoulder joint forward and back, I've got a free swinging action. And then I can allow the arm naturally, of course, to rotate. Okay, so we're actually allowing all this chain to happen naturally by just rotating, feeling what it's like to throw the shoulder joint back and forth. Notice how the pelvis is responding. My lead hip goes back, trail hip goes forward. If I want to rotate the other way, lead hip goes forward, trail hip goes back. Now I can start to recognise how I'm using the feet to push one hip back and one hip forward. And then the other way. I can push the trail hip forward, lead hip back, and that's what rotates the pelvis. Not hip rotation. That's hip rotation, but it's not getting through to the pelvis. We're going to rotate the pelvis by translating the hips, by shifting the hips, displacing the hip in space here, back and forth. That's what rotates the pelvis. So the walking action, left toe, right heel, right toe, left heel, and allowing that to rotate the pelvis and the torso gives us the free swinging arms. So we're freeing up the system. So the task of a golf shot and the intention behind it can allow the system now to tension itself dynamically, because that's what movement is. It's dynamic posture changing very quickly, okay, through a very quick reorganisation, distribution of tension. But you allow it to happen naturally in tennis, football, table tennis, throwing, even if you're just throwing underarm, even if you're not that athletic, okay, or sporty. If you were just throwing a piece of paper into a bin, or you're just throwing a stone, or you're just picking something up and just throwing it, or just moving around in everyday life, there's no real deliberate intention to move. There's no real interference, conscious intervention. You're not tensioning the system. There's no manipulation to it. Just let yourself react. So now what's it feel like to allow the arms to swing freely? So notice how this looks probably loose, and it's like the natural kind of thought is, well, that's going to go all over the place. That's the first thought, is that's just going to create complete inconsistency. How do you control a face to path? How does the face stay square? Well, once you introduce the pivot, that creates the lag tension, and what it does then, it maintains what we see on these slow motion videos. It maintains that kind of controlled release. That rate of rotation of the face looks really smooth and controlled, but that's driven by the pivot. That's the engine. And the lag tension that you're allowing to happen, not because you're putting tension into the system, because the more tension we put into the system, the harder we try and hit it, the more the body tensions, that stalls the pivot, that slows us down. And then naturally the golf club's going to overtake. So we're actually getting the opposite of what we intend. And by trying harder to control it and harder to hit it, we actually get more of this, because the pivot stalls, because there's so much effort, there's tension, we increase the inertia, we're disrupting the body's dynamic balance. It's not able to adapt instantly, quick in time, just like it does in everyday motion. The body adapts quickly, it reorganises its centre of balance, it reorganises itself, it's adapting, it's responding, it's reacting. We're losing that reactivity, that elasticity of the body. It becomes too rigid and the body just freezes. And we get that nervous system response where the body's trying to maintain balance, and then this happens and we end up with that follow through that's kind of all collapsed and flexed, and we're in flexion, the body's flexing, there's a lot of concentric muscle actions here across the joints just flexing us and taking us into what is a kind of stability, a stable place, but that's not allowing us to swing freely. That's not allowing this freewheeling action. It's not allowing us to push off. We want to be pushing off and unweighting, unloading, transferring that energy through to the golf club. We can't do that if we're still loaded into the floor, trying to maintain balance, because we've put excessive effort in, and also excessive effort in probably trying to swing back and control the club, because now we're not able to swing the club head freely. We're not able to let the body intuitively interact and react to the club. The heart of this, of driving it from the ground up through the pivot, is allowing ourselves, first of all, to take tension off the end of the chain and just allow this to rotate. And if you hit pull draws at first and it feels a bit flippy, that's not because it's a fault. You're actually allowing the arms now to rotate, you're allowing the club face to rotate, and what you're now allowing to happen is the body to pivot. So now it's the job of the pivot. So it's probably your pivot that's not efficient enough or effective enough. So working on the rotation of the body, and the better the rotation becomes, the more the club will naturally lag, and therefore it won't flip past the body, rotate excessively, shallow out, because as soon as we start to rotate early, the low point shifts back, because you can see the pivot point here is so far back, we're probably going to strike the ground early, or we're adding loft, we're going to catch it off the bottom of the golf club, all those things, thin, clean strikes, too much high launch, too much spin, maybe a duff or a thin, that tingly feeling through the fingers, that vibration. We want to be compressing it higher up the face, we want the handle leading. So how does the handle lead? We've got to be rotating, but for us to rotate, the arms have got to be swinging the club freely, so the club can lag behind. Otherwise, it's moving with us as we rotate, and it's naturally going to accelerate and take over before we get to the golf ball. It's going to beat us to the race. So we've got to throw the golf club. We've got to let the arms and club run off so that we can change direction. The body naturally tensions, and as we continue to pivot, this golf club is trailing, and you can then trust the late release and just let yourself go into a freewheeling finish. And there's plenty of videos on the channel about the finish and the pivot that you can refer to support this. So it's always an interleaving process where it's never just one, there's never one magic bullet, guys. There's never one drill that just fixes everything. You're gonna have an epiphany moment maybe where this drill or a particular drill really helps you and you think, that's it, I've got it. But you've never truly got it, because all that's feeding is a got it, lost it kind of behavior. It's actually a combination. We want to layer this. So interleave this. I would suggest this exercise with pivot exercises for the body. Foot ground interaction for the pivot, feeling, you'll have seen it millions of times on the channel, using the balance pads for rotation, using those, going to the ground, feeling that pivot, then introducing the arm swing. So in a pre-shot routine, you might want to just feel the arm swing, maybe even make a toe deep divot, okay, because you can allow the club now to bounce off the ground and encourage that toe to hit the floor behind you, because remember, this is where all the forces are happening. that create that all-important impact. And you're not going to hit the floor with the toe, of course, because you're going to be moving and rotating. The club's moving round on an arc. It's going to feel like it's probably getting thrown away. Look where the butt end of the golf club is, it's over there. But in hundredths of a second, because it's getting pulled around by the pivot on an arc, in hundredths of a second, it's round here. So you might be only marginally right of target as a right-hander with my swing path through impact. But here it feels really excessive. But it's got to, because it's here, it's on the arc. It's going to come back round. If I'm trying to swing to the target from here, by the time I get to the golf ball, I'm fighting that path to the left, and I'm probably not allowing myself to pivot and throw the arms, and that creates a whole host of issues in itself. But we're not going there in this instance. We're just thinking about how we can layer it up. Feel that toe deep, feel the rotation of the shaft, then bring in the pivot, bring in the feeling of the rotation from the ground, allowing your body to rotate to the target. And suddenly, this snap release of the golf club happens way later, and the lag tension it's resisting, it's controlling those rotations for you. There's a synergy between the body movement, the pivot, and the lever action. It all starts to intertwine because fascially everything's connected. It's a tension of the body. It's like one big elastic band, if you like, that you're tensioning. So this doesn't just take over unless this stops. If this keeps going, you're using that all-important tension. And that's when we can get that rotation. And we can start to sense that later release, the club taking over the hands later, which everyone desires. Everyone's seen the pros do it, but they're doing it because their body movements are so efficient. They're often moving so fast, so quickly, so efficiently that sometimes the club gets left behind. And then the pros all talk about getting stuck and leaving the club behind, and they're all working on keeping the club in front. But we actually want their problems, because you'll often see them practicing our problems. You'll see this move, the Alexander Noren or the Tiger Woods back in the day, Corey Pavin, Jimenez. You'll have seen them all maybe try this or work on this because they're trying to give themselves space because they're moving so fast. They're so efficient from the ground, unlike us generally, that we're not in danger of this trailing for too long and it being lagged behind. That would be a fantastic issue to have. That is a brilliant problem that we need to kind of fix, which of course there is no fixes, but we need to kind of address. But we're not there. We're doing the opposite, yet we're sometimes trying to do what the pros are doing and keep the club in front. But they're intuitive movers. They move despite all the noise and interference. They're going to move, put a ball in front of them. They're the 0.1% of the 0.1% of 8 billion people. They're going to be, they're super performers. Put a ball, give them a task, give them a shot. They start to move intuitively. And there may be some conscious, deliberate intervention taking place, but they've been doing it all their lives, and they're such efficient sequences that everything falls into place, and they've just got that consistency. You only have to go to a tournament and watch them, and week on week, if you watch them, and they don't win every week, but they're so consistent in their performance relative to of course it's relative to all our abilities. You see, they'll still say, so they'll have bad hitting weeks and good hitting weeks, but watching them, their level of performance is super, super elite, of course. So we can't compare ourselves to these guys. And we often, our needs are the complete opposite to their needs. We need to become really efficient movers, super sequencers. So we need to take the tension out of the end of the chain, guys. We need to let the swing weight react to us so we can pivot. And this is how we're going to do it.